Okay, so you found yourself in the first healthy relationship that you've ever been in, and you're not sure what to do. Well, I've been in your shoes. I'm currently in the healthiest relationship that I've ever been in after many toxic relationships. So I'm going to walk you through some things that I've learned, and I just wanted to say congrats. It's really hard to overcome toxic relationships, and it can be really hard letting go of all of that trauma, but it is possible and you can do it. So number one, be what you want to attract. I'm not talking about the law of attraction. I'm not talking about manifestation. I'm not talking about any of that. When I say be what you want to attract, I'm saying that in order to be in a healthy relationship, my cat just knocked something over. Yeah, you did. Anyways, a toxic relationship does not exist if both people are not somewhat toxic. You could argue that maybe one person is a little bit more toxic than the other, but in all of my past toxic relationships, they would not have thrived if I wasn't a little toxic myself. So I had to work on myself internally and learn how to overcome a lot of that to show up as my best self in my current relationship. To clarify, I'm not talking about abusive relationships. These are not toxic, as one person is the abuser and one is the victim of the abuse. If you really sit down and think about it, if you were to meet someone who was healthy, had all the green flags, passed all the tests, if you were showing up with your toxic traits or toxic tendencies, why would they want to be in a relationship with you? You have to be the best version of yourself to attract what you want in somebody else. If my current partner and I had met 5-10 years ago, even a year before we met, it probably wouldn't have worked out because I still had a lot of work to do on my end before I was ready to show up to this relationship as my best self. So start to think about what a healthy relationship would look like for you, and think about how you would want your partner to be and become that person. Okay, number two, a lot of us already know this. Just remind yourself that your partner does not have to fill every cup. It's great if they're your best friend and also your partner. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is your partner may not have every single interest that you have, and that's okay. But find friends or family members or colleagues or other people outside of your relationship that you can really lean on and rely on to fill that need and to fill that cup. That puts unnecessary stress on our partners, and it also creates this unhealthy dynamic where it's almost like you need your partner and you want your partner to complement you versus filling a need. The third thing I would say is that trust is not always a feeling, sometimes it is a decision. By that, I mean, if this is your first healthy relationship, I guarantee your trust was violated at some point. I guarantee that you have been deceived at some point. I guarantee that you have been betrayed in one way, shape, or form, and you have carried that baggage with you, and you still have a little bit of that trauma. You have to remember, I know we always say this, that your current partner is not your past partner or partners. So what I mean by trust isn't always a feeling, it's a decision, is that there have been times where I have been triggered, quote unquote triggered, where he'll do or say something and it will bring up these feelings that I used to have when I was in my most toxic relationship, my longest relationship, my most toxic relationship. And when that trauma gets brought up, it can be hard to decipher what's real and what's not. So there are times when maybe I have internally felt scared, I have felt vulnerable, I have felt on guard, but I have made the decision to trust my current partner because he has never given me any reason not to. And there are other things that he does that shows me that he's trustworthy and that I can trust him. I'm not even talking about like infidelity and cheating and being loyal. I'm saying when my current partner, his name is Avery, so when Avery says that he's going to do something, he does it. He shows up consistently every day. His actions are consistent with what he says. And there's a slew of other reasons as to why he is a trustworthy person. So overall, his entire character, he is trustworthy. I don't have a reason to believe that he's not. So even if I start feeling like I can't trust him because something happened and it triggered those previous traumas and those previous thoughts and feelings, I actively make the decision to trust him and I walk through that in my mind and I tell myself he's trustworthy. I don't have any evidence to support that he's not, and I make the decision to trust him. Number 4, everyone always says that you have to love yourself before someone else can love you. I partially agree with that. I think that there are times when your partner can show you so much love and grace that you begin to love yourself more. At least that's what I've experienced in this relationship. So I don't always think that you need to necessarily love yourself before you can love someone else, but I do think that you have to have respect for yourself. And the way you do that and the way you build respect and confidence in yourself is you make decisions that align with your morals and your values. Otherwise, you have what's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when your actions and your decisions are not lining up with your internal moral values and belief systems. So your body feels this dissonance or this disconnect because your actions are not lining up with what you believe. In toxic relationships in the past, I would make decisions that were not the best. I would get angry and say things I didn't mean. So in this relationship, I have started to respect myself and I've made decisions actively that I'm proud of that support my morals and values. So you actively start making those decisions, and sometimes it's little decisions, and sometimes it has to start small, and gradually you begin to trust yourself more. But if you consistently make decisions that you're not proud of, that don't line up with your values, you're telling yourself, I can't trust myself to follow through with who I want to be. So it just breaks down that trust and respect that you have for yourself. And the more that I've made positive decisions is the more confidence and respect and love that I have for myself, which in turn makes me show up as my best self in this relationship. And the last tip that I would give is to always assume the best in your partner, especially in healthy relationships. It's so easy in toxic relationships to assume the worst because you've probably seen the worst. In one of my past relationships, I was cheated on, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 times. So anytime any little thing would happen, I of course was always assuming the worst because I had seen the worst and I had felt the worst, and I was always on guard and on edge, prepared for the worst again. But when you have a healthy relationship, think of it as a clean slate and a fresh start. Think of it as you want to always start by assuming the best unless your partner proves you wrong. And this could even be with minor things. One example that comes to mind when I first started dating my current partner, Avery, was I asked him to go to the store and pick up a few things, and I needed some vegetables. Well, when he got back, I don't know why, I was just in a mood this day, but when he got back, the veggies that he had picked out looked not the best. And I remember thinking in my mind, I was like, did he just pick up whatever whatever veggies he could find? He wasn't even trying to find the good veggies. Like, this is why I go myself and I do it myself, because I know that I can pick out good veggies. But I stayed curious and I asked questions. So if you find yourself kind of on the edge or on the brink of wanting to be negative or wanting to assume the worst because of your trauma, likely, then you can always ask more questions before making any assumptions. So I think I said something like, what was the selection like at the grocery store? That's when he responded and he said, oh my gosh, there were no good veggies or fruits. Like, these were the best ones that they had. I tried to pick out the best ones and they just did not have a lot. So had I assumed the worst in him and just assumed that he didn't care enough to try to pick out the good fruits and veggies, I would have looked like the jerk, because that's not what happened at all. But because I stayed curious and eventually learned that my initial assumptions would have been wrong, it taught me a really valuable lesson in that moment. So those are just 5 tips and my 2 cents. It's really hard navigating a healthy relationship after you've experienced nothing but toxic ones. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, you can comment, and subscribe for more healing content. Wishing you all the best in all of your healing endeavors. It's tough, but you got this. Until next time.